Welcome to Dynamics of Dialogue, your one-stop shop for peace and love on the airwaves, a safe space for people of color and our allies. Join us every week as we have real dialogue with people going through real life. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some. Welcome to Dynamics of Dialogue, and this is your host, Ty Davis, and today I am interviewing Adria Kitchens, who is a certified feminine power life coach and facilitator. Adria, say hello.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you. So let me ask you first, can you explain what feminine power life coaching is?
Oh, I would love to. Glad you asked. So feminine power is really a relational system of power, working with women who are self-actualizing and teaching us how to really access our power from that source, as opposed to kind of the source of power that we've been accustomed to, which would be considered more authoritative or more individualistic. Kind of as an explanation, feminine power is really a relational power. So relationship with yourself, relationship with something, someone that is greater than yourself, God, universal life, whatever your name may be for that, and then relationship with others.
Awesome. Okay. Relationship with others. So I also noticed that inside of your title, it says that you are a feminine power coach and facilitator. So can you make the distinction for me between what the coach and a facilitator is in this regard?
Oh, sure. I'm glad you asked that, because I think that most people don't recognize what a coach does. And I think coaches and facilitators, especially from this perspective, do similar things. So for me, especially a feminine power transformational coach, like when you're coaching to help somebody and support them in transforming who they are, it really is you're facilitating someone's own self-discovery, right? You're helping to bring into alignment all the inner parts of themselves so that they can, by becoming aligned, be catalyzed to move forward in whatever possibilities or potentialities that they sense within themselves. And then facilitation, similarly, is that you do that with a group of people, right? So you actually help a group of people really come together, and you are helping them to facilitate their own self-discovery, right? And really align their own potentialities. And you're just doing that inside of a group and bringing forth the wisdom of the group and doing that.
Oh, well, that is interesting. Thank you for explaining that difference. That makes a lot of sense, because even though I've been the recipient of your coaching, I listened to what you do on a wider scale, on the global scale, but I didn't really get the difference in the nuance, so it makes sense. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. What is it that made you choose feminine power coaching as a method to push what is your why? What made you choose this method to push forward?
So I came to feminine power at a point in my life where I was really down, very depressed. I had lost everything through the real estate crisis. I was in real estate at the time, divorced, probably recently divorced at that point. 3 children, raising them as a divorced mother. And just at a really low place in my life, because obviously not feeling as if I was succeeding anymore. The market crashed. I lost all of my money. Mm-hmm. I ended up having to move back in with my parents, with me and my children. And so I came to feminine power because at that point I was so depressed, and I felt myself coming up against all of these beliefs about myself that I didn't know what to do with. And I did not know how to move forward from there at all. At all. I kind of came up against the brick wall, right? Like all the past experiences, all the issues of my past kind of came up in that moment, or in those moments, or across those months, and would not let me move forward at all. And I couldn't see how to get past that. And so I was blessed to have a friend really recommend Feminine Power to me. And I found that it was the most healing process that I'd ever been through, and that it actually gave me all the skills and capacities to continue to navigate my life. You know, I didn't feel like I had to go back to anyone to to really come up against any new things that would happen. I actually felt like I was getting skills that would help me navigate through being able to work through my depression, work through my own healing from any past trauma, and know how to get help, even if that meant going out, you know, getting a therapist or someone to talk to. I now knew how to navigate that for myself in a really empowered way. And that's really that's what brought me to feminine power. That feminine power, and that's what kept me going in it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I would say everything you said resonates with me, because that's been my experience with you, that I received in the coaching. It really helped me. It gave me the tools that I needed to navigate depression, which was probably one of the biggest challenges, to be able to navigate some of life challenges. I think one of the most difficult things is lots of times when we encounter life difficulties, it stops us from the path that we're on. And taking this coaching course has really helped me understand how to get back on track. So we've talked about some pretty interesting things that you have planned. You want to talk about some of those? We have a retreat coming up, and another venture called the Soul Activation Series. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yes, thank you. So I am planning a 2-day retreat, specifically focused on women and women of color, because I have a real heart for women of color and our experience, right? Especially women who've been through trauma, and not necessarily only women who've been through trauma, but any experience, right, where we've created a limiting belief about ourselves, about life, about other people, and really addressing, for me, like how we start to heal the traumas that we've all experienced from internalized oppression and internalized racism that we may or may not be able to name, like in this moment. And so for me, being able to have a retreat that brings in all the things I've learned from feminine power, which I believe are powerful tools, and really bring that to women to start to heal and shift our collective beliefs. Because women, you know, we are community builders. And when we start to heal, we want to take that healing to everyone else, including our children, our men, all of our families. And whether we have children or not, we tend to show up as mothers to others, right? Nieces, neighbors, we're going to show up and really bring that to our communities. And then as well, I have I'm really excited about is the Soul Activation Series that you and I will be co-hosting.
Yes.
And I'm very excited about that, because I believe that we really do, at a whole collective level, as people of color, how do we start to shift kind of the beliefs that are created inside internalized racism, and shift them so that we are empowered to show up differently in our own worlds and in the world at large, and allow ourselves to feel empowered enough to start taking a stand for ourselves, and really joining our voices in to start making movement around this and really heal our own community. And just to name a couple of other things, you know, I will be joining in a co-hosting with Deetra Hawkins, my colleague, with Plywood Presents. And we will be talking about how we use dialogue and partnering to heal racism, and what that means. And that's why it's so important to me that you and I are co-hosting the Soul Activation Series to really talk about what it means to be in co-leadership and co-leadership together.
Yes. That is, I'm in full agreement with that, because I think co-leadership, when, as you said, women, we're change makers. Once we get a hold of a concept, we take it and we share it with our children, our
Mm-hmm.
spouses, our whole families. We want everybody to change it and
Right.
for the better. Um, and that when we co-leadership, when we engage in practices like that, we support each other. Because being a woman, for a lot of us, whether we have children living with us or not, it's busy. We're
Yeah.
doing so much these days, and also it's a benefit to having a sounding board. It's a benefit to having another pair of eyes. There's so many benefits to passing these wonderful ideas through another person that
Mm-hmm.
you can work with so well. And I appreciate that opportunity. Um, so it sounds like there's a lot that's
Yeah.
going on just between
Yeah.
the retreat and the soul activation series alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever get the feeling like these are really huge goals? Do you ever feel like, can I, do I have all the tools that I need to reach these goals? Does that cross your
All the
mind?
time, all the time. In fact, I think I wake up sometimes like, oh my God, did I actually say I was going to do that? Like, what was I thinking? And
Yeah.
yes, I get overwhelmed. And what I love about about the skills of feminine power, right, is I'm able to bring myself back down and say, okay, wait a minute. First of all, I don't have to do this by myself.
Right.
Secondly, I have everything I need to be able to do my part. Like I don't need to do everybody else's part.
Right. Right.
Like I don't need to show up and be everybody else. I could just be Adria and whatever my part. And yes, completely. I think probably like you and me and most other women, we have like we sense these really big possibilities and we almost get stopped because we don't want to take them because they seem like they're too big. Like,
Hmm.
how could I ever say I'm not enough to do this? And I just have to realize that if I take it on as if it's my job to do, then I will keep moving forward, right? Regardless of whoever else needs to show up. If I don't do my part, they won't be able to do their part.
Right.
And that's how I've learned to take it on.
So, as you said that, I thought about one of the exercises that you have gone over with me multiple times, the intention setting, um, which I think is so valuable
Mm-hmm.
because that's exactly how I felt launching Boasso Black Media and Boasso Black Wall Street, feeling like I have to get this pressure of I have to get it done. And in a way, it's a good pressure that you're holding yourself accountable, but on the other hand, for someone like me who tends to deal with anxiety, that pressure that can
Mm-hmm.
cycle out of control. And what helps me are the intention setting sessions. Um,
Oh,
I was wondering, because really that whole process of getting deeply in touch with myself and what I'm
mm-hmm.
intending for whatever it is, the cause that I'm engaged in. When I do that, I'm able to speak to the cause itself more effectively, and I'm
Yeah,
able to see the vision more clearly. And I
yeah.
was wondering if we could take a moment and maybe if you would be so kind as to give an example for our viewers and our audience of what one of those kind of sessions sound like, what it looks like.
Oh, I'd love to. So you want to do that now?
Sure, yeah, it would be great.
Oh, cool. So what I would ask, right? So you and I and people who are listening is to just if you're in a place where it's safe to do so, just first moving everything to one side. There's something on your lap. What might be important is if like you're sitting, you might want to plant your feet on the floor as opposed to crossing your legs, kind of give space for all the energy to flow. And just I would invite you to close your eyes if you're able to do so and take a deep breath as if you could breathe all the way down into the center of your body, all the way down into your hips, into your legs, into the soles of your feet, and into the earth. And just as you're doing that, taking a step back from all the cares of the day and shifting our attention from ordinary awareness to extraordinary awareness. And just sensing into your own inner experience and all of your inner resources. And just imagine you could expand outwards towards the edges of the room that you're in. And just believing, trusting, and knowing that all of life is organized around our success. And we just want to expand into our connection with each other, whether we're here live or in the audience who will listen later, just expanding into that connection. And being of the greatest service. Each of our individual visions and our collective vision. And now that we're in this space, I just want to ask everyone a series of questions. And so if you have a paper, journal, pen near you, you want to have that out to answer the question. And the first question you're going to ask yourself is, what do I most deeply desire to experience? What do I most deeply desire to experience? And you really want to focus on the answer coming from your body as opposed to your mind. And when the answer comes to you, it doesn't matter. It could be a color, it could be just a simple word. You want to write, I most deeply desire to experience, and whatever that is. It could be, I most deeply desire to experience joy, happiness, love, connection, success, whatever that is for you. And the next question is, what do I most deeply desire to create? What do I most deeply desire to create? Just remembering when you answer the question to say, I most deeply desire to create, and whatever that is. And then the next question, what do I most deeply desire to express? And you just want to write down, I most deeply desire to express, and whatever that is, and just remembering to stay deeply connected to your body. And there are no right or wrong answers. Then the next question, what do I most deeply desire to contribute? Just remembering to answer the question, I most deeply desire to contribute, and whatever that is for you. Kind of the last question that you would ask yourself is, as you reflect over all of your answers, is, what you desire to experience and deeply desire to create, express, and contribute. What comes forward as an intention? And you might want to start that as my intention is to create a life of deep joy and happiness, deeply connected to my family and friends, expressing my fullest self, and contributing all God has called me to contribute. And you may want to, as you're listening to this, slow this part down, just kind of stop the recording and do the exercise. And this is a feminine power exercise that was created by Dr. Claire Zammit. Really powerful exercise. I love to do it.
It is a beautiful exercise. Of course, every time I do it, even though I know we're recording, I just jotted everything down and jotted down my intentions.
Yeah.
Because I figure I can always stand to refocus and get back in touch with that. So that's beautiful. And I hope that our listeners got a chance to kind of step through that and go and kind of go through that exercise. And I would love to really know if it helped anybody. So if it did, give us a shout out on our page, reach out to us on OfficialDofD on Facebook, or Adria, how can they reach you on Facebook?
Oh, they can find me at Adria Jordan Kitchens. They can find me there on Facebook.
Adria Jordan Kitchens.
Yes.
Okay.
Tell them to let me know they heard me on OfficialDofD.
Yes. You hear that, everybody? So please don't forget to do that. So before we wrap up, I kind of want to just spend a little bit more time in this soul activation series that you're talking about, because I think that the exercise that we just went through, I think that's a really beautiful beginning. So in terms of, we talked about, interviewing all these different types of people, and the intention, the full intention behind this activation series. Can you speak to that a little bit more detail from your perspective?
So I would say that the bigger vision, right, for me is on a global scale, like how do we heal racism? And for me, when we were talking right at the beginning about how healthy relationships begin with me, like healing begins with me, right? If I don't start with me, then healing someone else and healing my world is not going to happen. And so for me, it really is to get us deeply in touch with ourselves, like really connecting with the deepest parts of ourselves, really connecting with a force and field of life that is greater than who we are, who can support us and who's calling us forth, right, to really have an impact in this world. And then how do we do that in our collective community? How do we bring back, and I don't think it's gone, but like, how do we start to really shine forth the collective power and strength of our community, of our people, how we've always been in connection with one another in some deep, deep way, how that's been a part of our culture and who we are, right? This connection and community and collectiveness that we have, how that's a power and a strength, and how that's a place of resilience that we can really call on. And so for me, it's really how do we activate our individual souls, and how in doing that do we activate the soul of all of us so that we can start to shift into a new way of being and seeing, and really start to impact our worlds in an amazing way. And to see ourselves, right, as the doers and the ones who have the power to make this shift and this change. Like, we don't have to wait for anybody else.
No.
We can make this shift and change for ourselves, and really put ourselves, like for me, like putting myself in the path of my own purpose and passion. Because by doing that, then I'm actually doing what God has called me to do, so that whoever else, so even if it's Tai, right? If I don't do what I'm called to do, then Tai might not be able to do what she's called to do. And then the next person that you're impacting, even in your podcast, won't be able to do what they're called to do because you haven't done what you're supposed to do. Like, it's like all these different things that if we show up, if we recognize that our not showing up actually has an impact, not just on ourselves, but on the collective, then we can turn that around and say, oh, so if I show up, it matters, right? I absolutely matter to this collective being, to everything that happens in this world, I matter. And that to me is important. In this series, to really have that framework. And all of what I've learned in Feminine Power from Claire Zammit, and all that I've learned from Dr. Deidre Hawkins around equity and cultural competency, like comes into being, like comes to life inside of this Soul Activation series. Like there is something special in that kind of mixture that's magical in shifting, I think shifting, especially for women of color, shifting how we show up and who we are. Because I know that for me was a really key space to be in the presence of both of them. That made the difference for how I was able to show up.
And that's so powerful what you said, because again, mirroring that, that's been my experience. It's been meeting you two that introduced that into my life. And I'm watching it now. It's been like 2 years now. So now, after, it was sort of like I had to spend a year in training wheels because I was still uncertain, practicing trusting my own intuition. But now that I've, gotten a little bit further along in that journey, I'm just watching the things that I intend manifest one after the other. As I spend that time being very intentional, and then opening up the cultural, the equity piece, believing, I think that within the African American community in particular, we have the tendency to pretend that racism doesn't affect us profoundly. And it does. We tend to behave as though, I expect that, I should know what's happening, but we're not really thinking about the cost and, how we've internalized it when we don't show up for the collective. Because we believe that our individual person as a contribution doesn't matter, because we've embraced Western ideals of individualism over everything else, over the collective. I think we lose out on our perspective of how powerful we can be when we allow ourselves to be connected to the community at large.
I think about how my parents were, they raised me in kind of this little cocoon, right? My parents were very inclusive. They were people of service. They still are people of service. Always raised me in a very mixed environment in terms of our church, and believing that all people are created equal, right? And when it's like when you come out of that cocoon, when you start to face the world, and that for me was like my moment when I realized, oh, wow, okay, so my experience as a Black person looks different. Now, it's not that they hadn't told me, like given me some inkling of that, but I had not felt it because they raised me in a really safe place to really be able to grow. Like they wanted to make sure I was rooted and had a foundation of being able to grow and thrive. And when you get into the world, because I was in a very, male-dominated field, it's definitely male-dominated and not a lot of people of color, definitely not a lot of women of color. And I started off in science and then went into my own business, and especially being in commercial real estate and accounting and business, there just weren't a lot of people who looked like me. And when it came up against it, it was like this, right? Like, oh, I can't move any further because in many ways you don't want me to move any further. And really being able to go into myself and recognize, oh, okay, so this is because I'm Black, and what does that really mean? And what does it mean for me to have taken on these beliefs about who I am and how I show up? And, really inside of Deidre's work, right, really being able to see all of those pieces of the strengths and resilience of being a Black woman, and also being able to see the differences in how when you tell people that they are superior, that they really take that on and they can run with it. So this, you could do the same thing with our kids. Like we could tell them that they're smart and they can take that and run, right? If we tell them that, but if we have internalized that, no, we are not those people, that we are the people who are not the leaders, that we are the people who are not the creators, not the people who invent things, not the people who make the money, we're not the people who are successful, then that also actually plays into who we are.
Yeah.
And I have to be willing to see that about myself.
Right.
Which for me as a woman of color, I'm like, no, that's not who that's not who I am. I can succeed at everything. And yet I had to take that on, be willing to see that part of myself, realize that was a part of my collective belief, and shift past that, right? But it was what you just said, is recognizing that racism exists, and that I actually, even though I may not name it, there is a part of me that is impacted by internalized racism and internalized oppression.
Right.
And right. Go ahead.
And it's not a sign of weakness, right?
Yes.
Because for us, it begins as children. As I recounted yesterday, there's a book out called, I can't even remember what it's written, called Kill Them Before They Grow. And it just talks about how children school age are being disciplined and chastised in ways that sort of rob them of their self-esteem, of their self-worth, their sense of person, when you don't have a boundary. Things are treated, you're approached from a blame perspective rather than from a growth perspective. That's just what our educational system does to all children, really, from a blame perspective rather than a growth perspective, just because of the condition of things. But at the end of the day, our children struggle. You get these messages very young, and it's not just from school. You get it from parents, you get it from people around, you get it from other kids. So I can think of some of the early injuries I experienced behind racism, going back to the first grade. So because those things are implanted in you at a young age, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that, you failed in some way because you didn't magically overcome it through life.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
These things are messages. These are messages that are given to us throughout our lives, that they're subtle, and that's what makes it so insidious. And it's about everything. It's not just racism. It's oppression can come in many forms.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Very well named.
Yes.
Very well.
Yes, I thank you so much for this time, and I'm so excited about getting started on this soul activation series, because I believe in it. I believe in the power of stories, and I think one of the things that's going to be most significant about this series is being able to see yourself in somebody else's story.
Yeah,
I think that's how we see how much in common we have, because we just don't share, and because it's so easy for us to say, "Oh, it doesn't affect me. Oh, this is not it." But then when we hear a story about how a person who is aware, as you spoke about, right, in the intention session, you're really moving from an ordinary awareness to an extraordinary awareness.
Yeah.
So in that place, the beauty of being prepared for what comes is where the thrill of the journey comes. And I'm so looking forward to sharing that with our audience.
Oh, I am too. It's just, for me, being able to be in this space of recognizing that there is something calling me forward that's not just me, right? That there is something bigger and more significant. Like I have a purpose and a place. For all the years I thought I didn't matter, right? When I was depressed and thinking, oh, it doesn't even matter if I'm here, I recognize, oh yes, it actually does. And I have the power and the resources I need to be able to meet all of those things. It doesn't have to be by myself. All I have to do is show up and do my part.
That is it. And that is so, I remember hearing that from you in the beginning, and I said to myself, my God, this lady just doesn't know me. She doesn't understand. I was thinking to myself, right? And then sure enough, as I really got to understand the concept, I just realized, it's not even I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but when you fall into the path of, when you see the interconnectedness, It's almost like when you allow yourself to connect with other people, you fall into this path. You can identify the synchronicities between your work and your soul passion and someone else's soul passion.
Yes.
If that explains a little better. So that's why it becomes easier to manifest the things that you want. Yes. It's been a beautiful, beautiful journey, and I have so much gratitude for this experience. Yes, I do.
So excited. You've done some amazing things, Tai. I always saw it. And I know teachers saw it, and you just, oh my God, your energy and your creativity, I think, are just amazing. The way that you're able to, I think you catalyze other people's creativity, which to me is a gift. Really be able to bring that forward and see, you were just talking about the colors and all of that and what you saw in creating the colors for the soul activation series, what that will look like and what we'll be marketing. To me, that's gorgeous. That's absolutely gorgeous. That came from you.
Well, but you know what? This is again another beautiful example of the co-leadership, right? Because everything every skill I used to create to set the intention behind those images, that color and that whole look was what I learned from you in intention setting. So it's just a testament to the power, how we can tap into our inner power, just with a little gentle coaching. It's not about Adria tell me what to do. It's just about having the guidance to really help you.
Exactly. It's your own self-discovery.
Yes. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Oh, well, I'm just excited. I'm hoping to see people interested in the retreat, the 2-day women's retreat, which will be in February next year, 2020. Really hoping people get excited about the Soul Activation series and, all the work I'm doing with Dr. Hawkins. We have some amazing things coming up. If I can just share a little bit of those.
Yes, please.
We will be hosting 100 dinners all in one night in the city of Decatur. Coming up in August of 2019. And that, for me, is just amazing to bring people together to talk about race and racism. And what better place to do it than right in the place where I grew up, which is in Decatur, Georgia. And be able to have that conversation with diverse groups of people and have people take that on. I'm amazed by that. Really being able to push people. I talked a little bit with you about the Equity Design and Innovation Institute. Kind of what's coming up for me is really being able to teach people how to have that equity lens and give them the framework and what that really means, and all that's still coming together. But that's important to me because I think people need that framework. They need that lens. Yes. It makes a difference. I've seen the difference that makes, in Dietra's work, and be able to have people be able to think about things, from that perspective. She talks about like context, practice, and policy. Like having that framework actually helps you create the correct policy or correct a policy that has been harming people. And we need to be able to have that framework. So I'm excited about all of those things.
I am too. And I can't wait to be a part of it because I always just, throw my hat in the ring just so I can keep learning. So count me in. Count me in. Yeah. I love it. So again, I thank you, Adria Kitchens, for coming on today. I hope everyone got to see just from the sample that she ran with us, the demo of the intention setting, the power of this feminine power life coaching and facilitating is just transformative. And I can tell you, I'm just an example of it, and I'm so grateful for it. Before we go, where can people, you mentioned the 100 dinners, how can people sign up for the 100?
Oh, wonderful. So DecaturDinners.com, DECATUR dinners with an S on it.com. Please go and sign up. We'd love to see you there. You can go ahead.
To learn more about Dr. Hawkins?
Yes, drdietra.com, DRDIETRA.com.
Okay, and your website is coming soon?
My website is coming soon.
Okay.
You can always go to our onesmallchangeinc.org website. I have a coaching page on there, and you can look up Coach Adria, and that is there. And you can sign up for like a 30-minute discovery session with me, and that's free for you. And you get to see if coaching will be something that will be supportive of you getting to the next level in your life.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we have got all of this information all nice and tidied up. I just wanted to make sure that everybody could understand exactly how to reach her, how to reach Dr. Hawkins, and to just get some access to this wonderful, wonderful experience that I cannot speak highly enough. So once again, I hope everybody, you have enjoyed the show. I thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to visit Adria, find her on Facebook, and visit onesmallchange.com, onesmallchangeinc.org.
Yes.
.org. And I had to get that correction in there. And as usual, I'll leave you with my slogan: be intentional with your plans and manifest your best. Share, everybody.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our show. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. at OfficialDofD.com. Follow us on social media at OfficialDofD. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some.